So you're currently working with the virtual trainer.
Correct.
Down in Dallas.
Yeah,
You're
awesome.
From Dallas, or?
I'm not. No, I found him on a podcast and reached out to him that way. But I have been living in Indianapolis. Just moved to Chicago about 3 weeks ago.
Okay. How you liking it?
I love it. Yeah,
Oh, really?
it's a great area. Yeah, my sister's lived here for 10 years,
I gotcha.
and my girlfriend has lived here, so I moved here to be with her.
Okay. What's your neighborhood?
Logan Square.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
Good boy.
Our facility used to be in Logan Square.
Yeah. And she's a customer of the daycare.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who's your dog?
Mac. He's a
Oh.
little Bernedoodle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, Gabby.
Yeah. Okay. Because my former assistant Maria, who now handles the facility, was talking about she got another dog or something. But it must be Hugo.
Yeah. I think she mentioned. Yeah, good boy.
All right. So how has the virtual has it helped you in?
It has, yeah. So we got started in May, and one of the main things was, and just let me know if you want me to pull him off. But
as long as if you're not worried about him acting
sure,
up, then we're
yeah.
good.
We got started because he's always been kind of a fearful, reactive dog, very aware of the world. Early on, I would try to take him for walks, and he would, hear a construction noise off in the distance, freak out, that kind of thing. I got him when he was 3 months old. He's about 3.5 now. And then it's just kind of escalated over the years. Like, we had a couple run-ins with strange dogs on walks.
I see.
And then a couple months ago, we were visiting Gabby's parents in Michigan. It was his first time there. He was coming off of a week of travel. He was definitely stressed. And we had an incident where he jumped up and nipped my girlfriend's dad on the torso. So that was kind of a big warning sign that even though, with the training we've been doing, we had seen a lot of progress in terms of him being able to relax at home. A lot of the training is centered around relaxation work. So we started also with Easter egg hunts, kind of getting him to eat outside, engaging his senses a little bit more. Behavioral downs where we're sitting, have the leash tethered to my foot, just waiting for him to bring himself down to relax. Just with those kinds of things, I've seen definitely improvement in terms of when he does get triggered, he's easier, or it's been a bit of a week, so my words are good. But when he does get triggered, he's able to walk himself down a little quicker. He doesn't stay as hyped up for as long. But these root, if he sees a car drive past our house, he starts barking. If we pass a dog on a walk, I'd say 8 times out of 10, he's gonna, get on guard mode and either growl or bark or try to lunge. So a week ago we had an incident where I opened the door for him to go outside. We have a shared yard with our upstairs neighbors. I didn't realize that she was out there. He ran out and bit her on the butt, and it was bad enough that she needed to go to urgent care, get checked up. It didn't require stitches, but it was definitely a...
Were there punctures?
There were, yeah, and there was 2 bites.
I see.
So that was a real red flag, warning sirens going off in terms of, he clearly has the capability beyond just cases where he's startled or where he's spooked, his first choice was to run outside and bite. I do think it was a standpoint of, protection or an unknown entity, on the property. He's got Boxer, Rottweiler, Chow, a lot of the,
he's got a couple of territorial
Amstaff,
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
All things considered, honestly, he's amazing. Like, he doesn't, usually with guests, there's a period of like a few minutes where he's barking and skeptical, and then he's, putting his butt on them for butt rubs, and, very friendly once we get past, even with new people, yes. Just takes that initial getting past the part where they're unknown. And, that fear of change, fear of unknown, even now you can just see he's very alert, tracking everyone going by. Yeah, not at all. So, his tail's tucked. So I think I'm still working with that trainer. I think the virtual component of it has been limiting in that he's not able to see the body language, working on the timing of corrections and of treating.
What is your correction?
So I've got a squirt bottle that is
Okay.
more of a when I know a behavior is about to happen
Yep.
and I'm able to predict it,
Yep.
then we use this as a hey, no. For moments when he gets triggered and I've missed the opportunity, it's, you know, a lot of leash pulling, a lot of and then rewarding him when he does start to relax.
Okay.
Haven't yet gotten into like prong collar or e-collar, that type of thing,
Sure.
but
Yeah, we'll talk about
certainly, yeah, sure.
For the, because you said earlier, 8 out of 10 times with dogs, he'll be reactive.
Yeah, that might have been a little high, but certainly, like, I'm sure if a dog walks by, we'll see it.
Any patterns? Like, is it their energy? Is it a puppy energy? Is it another reactive dog? Is it a size thing?
I'd say I've seen it with small dogs and large. I've seen it across different breeds.
Okay. Yep.
No,
So
no
it's
real
just
discernment. Yeah.
I got you. Okay. So all this makes sense to me. Okay. The way I view things very instinctually. I think the world has become very humanized, and a lot of things are like a dog would just be labeled as like aggressive, and I'm like, no, like, it's coming from somewhere.
Right.
Dogs aren't aggressive for no reason.
Right.
Okay. So with that bite in the butt, right? I agree with you. It's unfortunate that it was like the upstairs neighbor or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I don't hold that against the dog
Sure.
because that is a territorial protection thing.
Sure.
It just happened to be the neighbor, right? Let's say it wasn't the neighbor.
Yeah.
Let's say it was burglar.
Yeah.
You would have a cult.
It'd be totally different.
Yeah, it's always like, yeah, and by the way, like, look, this is burglar.
Right.
We're glad you did it, right?
Sure. Sure.
So when you look at it in that different light, you go, okay, you know what, that makes sense, because he cannot distinguish burglar,
Right.
neighbor,
Friend, yeah.
right? What he thinks is you and Gabby, you're the home. Anybody outside of that is a potential threat. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So like even right now, like with the hypervigilance, which is this isn't that bad. I've seen way worse.
Sure.
Okay. Is like this right now. This gentleman just walked up and he heard his footsteps and he turned around and checked him out.
Right.
That's what I mean by vigilant. He's definitely anxious, but he's not super anxious.
Sure.
Okay. Ears are up, and I don't consider this to be tucked.
Okay.
Where you like his
Sure.
his tail is neutral.
Sure.
But he's under stress.
Okay.
I get dogs that are like tails tucked
Sure.
against the owner. They're salivating. They're well-eyed. Like they're clearly under duress.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I can see the issues, okay? And that's really what's causing everything else. Okay. The bite on Gabby's dad. Okay. Could you explain that really quickly again?
Sure. So, just to give the full story, that morning we had picked up a U-Haul. It was like a 2-hour delay. There was a lot of stress around that. We got to her house. My initial plan was to leave him outside in the gated area, but the house is near some gun ranges. So we got out and just immediately gunshots going off. He's obviously very reactive to that kind of thing. So I brought him inside and tried to, you know, slow walk the introduction to her parents and that kind of thing, but he was very clearly anxious. We had about an hour of okay behavior. There was one point that should have been more of a red flag for me than it was, where Hugo was sniffing Gabby's dad, and he kind of postured all of a sudden and did like, and Gabby's dad, you know, stepped back.
Were you guys inside or outside?
We were inside in their living room.
Were you guys already inside and her dad came in?
No, he was already in the room.
Okay.
He had already seen her dad, certainly. I will say when we first came in, we were on the ground level. Her dad was up like half a flight of stairs, kind of over, and that got him a little worked up.
Okay.
However, after that posturing, like I got him to relax. Gabby's dad was sitting down on the couch. Hugo did go up and like Gabby's dad was able to pet him, was able to interact with him and even retelling the story, I'm like, why did I even let him get close again? But coulda, shoulda, woulda. So then we ate lunch outside, and as we were cleaning up, Hugo was inside. Gabby's dad was coming inside from around a corner, had a plate in his hand. I think it did just kind of spook Hugo. I did kind of see the whole thing, and I saw Gabby's dad come around the corner. Hugo did like a "Arr!" And then immediately backed off, and you know had his
What you're gonna bring him in. You're gonna come forward.
Hey.
Yep, you're good. So just come forward.
Okay.
And then you're gonna pull up on your leash. Okay. And then with your other hand, you're gonna push down his hindquarters. Very good.
Hey, sit. Come on.
More up and then more down. Yeah. There you go. Almost.
Oh.
Rotate. Yep. Yep. You got it now.
There we go. Good boy.
Okay. Okay. So that was kind of like a territorial thing too.
Yeah.
It sounds like he got caught off guard.
Yeah.
Was the bite to her dad? Was it just a bruise?
Yeah, it was just a bruise. It didn't break skin. He was on blood thinners, so I think it bruised
A little bit more than
yeah,
that.
but I mean, again, very lucky that it wasn't,
For
or
sure.
felt lucky that it wasn't worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the bite to the neighbor has been the worst bite.
Totally. Yeah, by far.
And the rest that you've seen, have there been other attempts, like where he made contact?
None where he's made. Well, okay, sorry. One other where somebody had come into our house. She had been there before, and he did. He kind of rushed her and did like a nip, caught her shirt, and then immediately backed off.
What was his behavior after the attack?
He was relaxed. He calmed. I was able to pull him away, give him some food, and then same thing. Like he was going up to her and in a very relaxed state after that.
Okay. And she just entered the home?
Yeah, she
There
just
was no
entered.
knock?
No, there was no knock. Yeah, because it was for band practice. Which in the house that I lived in prior, I had friends coming over weekly for this band practice, and never had. You know, we would have incidents where he would bark when they first came in, but I think that near bite was probably a real trigger for me to get into a training program.
Had he seen that person before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that also is, I don't hold it against the dog.
Sure.
So to give you an example, I had a client, it was a 5-year-old Yorkie, never bit anybody in his life until one day. Okay. So they're telling me everything. I'm like, all right, this doesn't make sense. Like, you know, this is not an aggressive dog. So then I asked them, like, well, did the person just walk in? And they go, yeah. They go, we had just had our baby. We were changing in the nursery or whatever. The aunt had come over and they left the door open for her to just walk in.
Sure.
I was like, that's why she got bit.
Sure.
Because there's a routine.
Yeah.
There's a ritual.
Yeah.
Knock, knock.
Sure.
Come in. Person walks in.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, but because she came in uninvited and you were vulnerable,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
The dog's instincts kick in.
Right.
And I was like, it just sucks that it was your aunt. And
Right.
I said the same thing to him. I was like, if it was a burglar,
Yeah.
we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Right.
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 So it's the same thing. I'm surprised that he had already met the person before because. Like if you would have told me like, oh yeah, it was a one-off thing, but because of the band practice, it seems like a regular thing.
It was, so she was a like background singer just coming every now and then. So it had only probably been once or twice that she had been
So
over.
still familiar.
Yeah.
Makes
yeah,
sense.
Yeah.
You know? Or like, let's say he was sleeping while she entered.
Sure.
Like, you know, like things like that or things like.
Yeah.
That's why when I ask them like, tell me what happened around the bite.
Right.
A lot of that stuff goes, this is why that happened.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very rare that a client will tell
Completely
me
out
something
of
that doesn't make
nowhere.
sense.
Yeah. And like when it happened, I wasn't one of these owners that like, you know, oh, I never saw it coming or I never thought he could do it. Like I've known he could do it.
Every dog can.
Exactly.
I tell everybody,
Yeah.
every dog can. It's just a matter of if the prerequisites are met and
Right.
they need to.
Totally.
Okay. So I deal with this all the time. I've been doing it for 15 years. It's my specialty. You definitely have a territorial guy, a little bit of anxiety, and some nervous triggers. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay. So fear, anxiety, and nervousness look similar, but they have key differences.
Okay.
Okay. Fear tends not to let it go. Okay. So if somebody came in, they would continue barking.
Sure.
They don't stop.
Okay.
Like ever.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless the threat leaves,
Uh-huh.
they don't fully relax. You can put them in a different room, and a lot of times they'll still keep barking.
Sure.
Okay. The other thing is if you move towards them, they tend to back away.
Yeah.
And if you back away, they tend to move forward.
Sure.
Okay, so that's a fearful dog. An anxious dog won't relax. They keep walking around. But he's doing a little bit of that right now.
Sure.
He's just starting to relax.
Right.
It's been approximately 15 to 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But that's still good. So I'm like, all right, 15 to 20 minutes, yeah, it's a little bit of time.
Sure.
But I get dogs that never relax.
Sure.
Okay. So he's got some anxiety, but not a ton where I'm like, yeah, that's concerning.
Sure.
Okay? Nervousness will relax and everything's calming down, but then they'll trigger when there's a sudden change.
Sure.
So like when you guys were eating and the dad came in with the plate, like that's a sudden change.
Yeah.
Right? Going out into the yard, to a degree, that's a sudden change with the environment. The person is walking in, that's a sudden change in the environment.
Sure.
Okay. So those are nervous triggers. Okay. So once you start to see that, it really allows you to see like nervous dogs, fearful dogs, anxious dogs.
Sure.
And every dog is a mixture of these emotions, just like humans.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's been times where I've been scared, but not a lot. There's been times where I've been anxious, but not a lot.
Sure.
Right? But there are humans that tend to favor, right? Or they tend to more easily
Default,
trigger
yeah.
into anxiety or fear or whatever.
Sure.
The same thing for dogs.
Sure.
Okay. At some point, every dog or every animal is going to feel this emotional state. But when you get dogs that or animals that do it more regularly,
Or, yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
That's
That
helpful.
makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
So I'm glad you made progress with what you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
The reason, in my opinion, that you're hitting a plateau
Mm-hmm.
is there's no deterrent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Dogs are beautiful creatures. He's given you 3 good examples.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They address things through nipping and biting.
Sure.
Okay? So nip and bite is a sign of affection,
Mm-hmm.
a sign of play, a sign of frustration, a sign of correction, a sign of protection. Right? They're very mouth-based. So in order for us to deter something, we have to essentially nip and or bite them back.
Sure.
Okay? That's why like a prong collar is designed the way it's designed. You'd be surprised how many times I get clients and they'll show up with the prong collar. And I'm like, who told you to get this? And they're, oh, you just got it. And I go, do you know why it looks that way? And they go, no. And I'm like, it's meant to mimic a dog bite. And
Sure.
Go, oh, that makes sense.
Shit.
They're like, I just thought it was meant to hurt the dog.
Yikes.
No, it's meant to mimic a dog bite.
Yeah.
And then we have remote collar.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Also known as a shock collar, which I'll cover. It's incorrect, but I like to refer to it as a bite on the button.
Sure.
Because it allows me very efficiently and at the exact moment to correct the dog without needing to have a leash.
Sure.
So the prong collar is a great tool, requires a lot of technical skill.
Sure.
You have to learn when to relax. A lot of my clients come like this.
Sure.
I don't know if you saw the last client I left with that large brown tan kitty.
No.
This was her 2nd class. That dog on the consultation was very reactive. Okay, we had 1 class last week. He showed up today. 1 moment of reactivity.
Sure.
And it was minimal. He
Sure.
corrected it immediately.
Yeah.
So the owner was like feeling really good because he moved from Cleveland, Ohio, in with his mother, and his mother has a dog, and they have to keep them separated.
Oh
right
man.
now,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So this is like urgent.
Sure.
But within a class, we got 90% of it done.
Sure.
Right. Is because we're communicating with the dog and it means that they understand instinctively.
Sure.
Okay, so I don't have a problem with food. I don't have a problem with food-based methods. I just know where the plateau is.
Sure.
Right? So if nothing tells the dog you can't do that, technically speaking, it's always an option.
Sure.
Okay? So, for example, with the person in the yard, don't be in the yard
Yeah.
with the communication.
Yeah.
Right? The person that walks into the home, don't just walk into the home.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or like with Gab's dad, don't startle me.
Yeah.
Right? Like when the human sees it, like, oh, but that's mean or that's aggressive. Like it's not. It's not just that's how dogs communicate. So this here's a dog bite. Okay.
Oh yeah. Sure.
I have
is.
several dog bites, but this one is 1 dog bite. It's 10 stitches.
Oh,
Okay?
wow.
It's a Great Dane. Which always surprises people because they go, Great Danes are gentle giants. I go, yeah, but every dog can bite. And what happened was, this was back when I was 11 Square. I had literally only had the dog for 4 hours. Okay, we did some training for boarding training. Dog did great, and I hadn't had a dog that big yet. So and I only had wire crates. So I need to see, would you fit in the kennel?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I just went to load the dog in the kennel.
Oh yeah.
He had never been crated before. He was 1.5 years, plus he was stressed from a little bit of training, right?
Sure.
He's like, I don't know you, man. I don't know what you're trying to do with me.
Yeah.
I got to protect myself.
Yeah. I'm out.
Right?
Yep.
And I couldn't dodge it because it was a Great Dane. So when I called the owners, I told them it's okay. Your dog's not aggressive, because that's the first thing. Like, oh my God, my dog. And I'm like, nope, it's fine. Your dog freaked out. Because I asked them, has he ever been in the kennel before? They were like, no. I'm like, okay.
There we go.
There we go, right?
Sure.
So they took him. I healed up. He came back. I trained up. He still comes for daycare and boarding. No
Nice.
issues ever
Yeah.
since,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, you have to be able to read the situation and understand, like, yeah, it sucks that this happened, but I understand why it happened.
Sure.
And that's why I don't hold the dog accountable.
Sure.
Right? So here, with these moments that he's having, we need to disrupt the pattern through consequence. And he has to figure out, like, okay, oh, that dog, I don't like that dog, potential threat, reactivity. We correct it to teach them that's not appropriate,
Sure.
like another dog would.
And are you trying to catch it like now at the moment he notices the dog, or is it you wait until
Every
he's...
case is different.
Sure.
So bring them in. Yep. You're going to come forward, you're going to pull up and then press down. And then relax. Very good. Watch here, I'm going to keep the leash shorter, because he's going to walk right past us. Okay? So he's noticing again. And you're going to
So I just stay still?
So
Okay.
don't body block him.
Sure.
The reason why I don't like body blocking is you can get bit.
Sure.
Up, yep. And then down on the butt. Yeah, I've had clients get bit because body blocking, people can't see.
Sure.
And the dog jumps, they get frustrated because you're blocking.
Sure.
And they go, get out of my way.
Yeah.
I want to get at that dog.
Makes sense.
Okay. So, we do first what's called an indirect approach. Okay. The first thing we always teach 99.9% Okay, leash walking. My style of leash walking is very strict. If I take 5 steps, he takes 5 steps.
Sure.
If I take 1 step, he takes 1 step. When I stop, he automatically sits. And your leash will be very slack.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't care what the environment is. I don't care how busy it is. Okay? Have you ever been to the park before?
No.
This is the busiest park in Chicago. I know right now it doesn't look it.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of the day on a Monday.
Sure.
But here on a Saturday or Sunday,
Sure.
you got jazz bands, you got baseball games, you got strollers, rollerbladers, bikers, off-leash
Sure.
dogs. You got everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
So that's why clients like to train here.
Sure.
Is we start with heel first because it allows us to layer in discipline without confrontation. Okay.
Sure.
So I'm correcting him to teach him what the expectation is, which is to walk with me, to get the understanding of how the collar works, okay, how it turns on and how it turns off, okay. So for Sonny, who left just before you, the heel exercise resolved 90% of their reactivity in one class. Then they come back and I go, now we're going to fix the leftover stuff.
Sure.
Okay. And that's where we might start doing a more direct approach. So indirect is I'm going to work on heel and I'm going to see what does it fix.
Sure.
And then you come back and you're like, hey, Jesse, his reactivity, 80% better, 40% better, 95% better. Sometimes it's 100% turnaround. I go, great. Now we have this left over to work with.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're my feedback. We have class 1. I coach you through things. Similar to like right now, if he became reactive, I would walk you through it.
Sure.
I don't need to touch the dog.
Sure.
Okay. So now you're getting hands-on experience. Then you go and you practice your homework. And then you go, okay, I had reactivity issues during the training session and I'm going to use that as my foundation during the week.
Sure.
Right? You come back, you're like, hey, it was much easier to stop, or there was no reactivity, blah, 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 blah. I go, great, now we're going to make a few tweaks. We're going to work on the second half of heel. Okay? We do that, rinse and repeat. You come back, you give me more feedback.
Sure.
Okay? For a case like this, the third class most likely would be like pressure work. Pressure work is you show up and I just come into his personal space, okay, to see does it trigger anything. Okay? If it does trigger anything, good. We correct it.
Sure.
Okay. If it doesn't trigger anything, also good, because it means that. So right now, if he's already at a baseline of stress, and somebody comes into his personal space uninvited, they're adding more stress.
Sure.
And that's where the dog jumps from.
Sure.
So with Sonny, when they showed up, he was already stressed out, and then when he saw dogs, it stressed him more, and then he became reactive. And then during the consultation, we saw like 20 dogs. Towards the end, he was getting very reactive, and I told him it's because he's been stacking this entire hour, because we were just like this.
Sure.
Right? And the owner was doing the same thing that you were doing, but since we didn't have anything to provide consequence, there was nothing to tell the dog to go back to
Right.
passiveness.
Right.
Okay. So it's hard for people to envision that a thing that is bad could get a dog to calm down, but dogs don't see it as bad.
Right.
Because so humans are taught physicality is bad, right? We want to handle things with our words, but sometimes physicality is good, right? Yeah, I have a wife and we have our son of 2 months, right? If something threatened them, you best believe them become
Absolutely.
aggressive.
Game over.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Now it's like now it's necessary, and now it's like okay, understand, right? But for the most part, we try to avoid that. Dogs don't. Dogs, that is their primary form of language, right? It's body language and physicality.
Right.
Okay, and if you don't see the body language, you're getting the physicality.
Yeah.
Okay, or sometimes the dog goes, you know what? I feel so threatened that I'm not even going to give you body language. I'm just going to give you physicality.
Sure.
Right? Because he doesn't have the, hey, could you like not startle me?
Right. That nuance. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we get the brain to be more passive, it takes more to trigger it. Okay. Now there's going to be certain contexts where I'll go, we want to avoid these things. So for example, the yard thing that happened, we want to avoid that.
Right.
Or at least walk them down with the leash so that's not a startle.
Yeah.
Because that's more instinctual.
Yeah.
But like someone coming into the room, that's something that could be worked on.
Sure.
Okay. Is that all making sense?
Totally.
So we see what this heel resolve, right? And you're just giving me this feedback, and we play it by ear each class. And I, in my head, will have like a game plan. But sometimes the owner comes back and they're like, hey, like this happened, and it's very concerning, and I want to address it. I go, no problem, as long as we've covered heel.
Sure.
Because that's the foundation.
Sure.
Because the dog has to learn how it turns on and how it turns off. Okay. So I've had clients show up with human aggressive dogs or whatever, and they're like salivating and they're super neurotic and they're on edge and they're doing their own e-collar training.
Sure.
Because the human thinks, oh, my dog wants to bite a person, that's bad. So I'm just going to blast the dog.
Sure.
Okay. But now the dog doesn't know why it's happening. Plus the consequence is so severe, they can't think through it. Okay. So I don't go, oh, your dog is reactive, 100.
Right.
I go, we're going to start low. We're going to work our way up, and we're going to find what's appropriate to your dog.
Yeah.
every dog is different.
Right.
So have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist?
No.
Have you ever seen like the on YouTube or whatever where they'll create labor contraction pains in men?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's called a TENS unit.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did watch the first half of your video on this, comparing the TENS to the.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
good. Yeah. So it's the same technology.
Sure.
So the word shock comes from 2 points. In the dog training world, there's a lot of drama.
Sure.
I don't know if you're aware.
Oh yeah, I am. Yeah.
So you have the positive only trainers,
Yeah.
and then you have trainers like myself that
Yeah.
do food, prong, remote collar, gentle leader, or anything available to me that I think that's going to work.
Sure.
I'm going to use it, right?
Sure.
So positive only trainers will use words like shock
Mm-hmm.
to their clients to deter their client from seeking out trainers like myself.
Sure.
Because no one wants to electrocute their dog.
Mm-hmm.
But electrocution is not even what we're doing.
Right.
They use the technology on humans all the time.
Right.
Okay. So it's a miniaturized TENS unit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when e-collars were first created, they had like 3 to 5 settings.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I use has 127. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
5 and 127 are the same. I just have 122 more divisions now.
Sure.
All right.
Okay,
So
got
I
it,
have
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your
Sure.
jumps
Yeah.
are great, shocking, if you will, because
Right.
it's so abrasive.
Mhm.
Okay. But you go 5 to 6, you can barely feel the difference.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's much more nuanced now.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I use a remote collar is because right off the bat I get off-leash control. It's the easiest tool for the average dog owner to understand and replicate.
Mm-hmm.
Timing, we don't worry about timing. I know if you read stuff, timing this, timing that,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Mhm.
Okay, your window for timing is actually much greater than you think.
Hmm.
Okay, so like, have you ever seen him get stressed out and you can still see he's stressed out after the fact?
Yeah.
Right. So
Mhm.
technically, until he relaxes, that is your window for timing.
Sure. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because he's
yeah.
still in the state.
Right.
Right. Whereas with like food or whatever, it's like you have 3 seconds or you
Right.
have like a half a second
Catching
window.
the decision point rather than the.
No, you
yeah.
have a much greater window. So even if a
Sure.
dog became reactive, and they were reactive for 5 minutes, the moment I find the correct setting and I correct them, it's going to happen immediately.
Sure.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
if the dog completely lets it go, 20 minutes have passed, they're thinking about something else, I've definitely lost my window,
Sure.
but it's still greater than the 5 seconds that they typically give.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
So it's very logical. It's very intuitive. It doesn't matter who the handler is. So like if I did have to take the dog, if I press the number at 25 and I give it back to you and you press the
Sure,
number at
it's the
25,
same,
it's the
right,
same.
right.
With prong collar, again, it's a great tool.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this for 15 years. I use prong collars very well.
Sure.
That if I go, okay, here you go, and you
Not
try
gonna
to do
be
it, he knows
transferable.
the
Right,
difference.
right.
He goes, I can see what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
but
Not
you're
buying
not
it, bro.
doing it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So that experience is going to come through.
Sure.
You play guitar,
Yeah, I do.
right? How long have you been playing guitar for?
Long time.
Okay. Okay. So you're probably way better than I am.
Sure,
Okay.
okay.
You put me on the stage to play a song, and you put you on the stage to play the song. It's going to
Sure.
be completely different.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Because of our skill sets.
Yeah.
I'm great as a dog trainer. I'm sure you're great as a guitar player.
Sure.
Okay. If I joke with my clients, if I was as good at guitar playing as I am dog training, I'd be a guitar player.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the dog does see that skill.
Sure.
Okay. So the other thing about remote collar is, again, I don't have to touch the dog. So I don't even give the dog a reference point now.
Mm.
Right? Everything's all you. So
Right.
even though you're learning in the process, the dog only knows you, and we're going to get it sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing the dog learns is, hey, you've started asserting yourself in this new way with consequence,
Mm-hmm.
and you mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I have to change how I behave with you now.
Sure.
Okay? Because now there's a respect factor.
Sure.
So it's not just like train the dog, like there is relationship stuff, because if the dog doesn't feel as if you're in charge, he thinks he needs to protect you,
Sure.
right? But if you are in charge, then technically you protect him.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the lens I'm trying to take, is not about fixing his behavior, because his behavior, like you said, is instinctual, but it's how can I better communicate with him
Yeah.
to let him know that, it's not a threat.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because he doesn't see the world the way you see the world,
Right.
right? And part of that is, I always tell clients that organic situations are always the best training sessions, because we can set it up, we can set the foundation and
Sure.
everything, but when you're living your life with him and he sees a dog and he becomes reactive, you go, no.
Right.
He's like, oh, in life,
Yeah.
you're telling me I can't do this.
Right.
And that's really where the real training is.
Sure.
Because dogs aren't dumb.
No.
And a lot of training, of course, is like in a controlled context, you're in a room or, you're in your own home or what have you. And then you try to transfer it out to the real world and it doesn't,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
of the limitation. Good, up and then down on the button.
Come on.
Almost.
There
And
we
the
go.
spits out. Good. Up on your leash again, so bring them back in. And open your leash down on the butt. Good. And like here, the fact that you can actually get him under control again this easily, there's a bit of effort, but it's still relatively easy,
Right.
is a good sign.
And that's definitely, a new thing of us,
Yes.
me pushing him down like that. Yeah.
So do you know what you're telling him?
Relax or,
Yes.
yeah.
So people would say sit,
Sure.
right? Because that's the motion.
Sure.
But really what we're telling them is relax.
Right.
Okay? And what you're doing is you're using pressure. The collar works very similarly. So you can feel when you're pulling up and you're pressing down, you're applying pressure. The moment he sits, what do?
Relax, right?
Relax,
Because, indicate,
Okay.
yep, you did it.
Yeah, so it's the same with the remote collar.
Sure.
So I'm putting pressure on him, and the moment he gives me what I want, I take that pressure off. Okay? So it gives us, again, that very kind of nuanced and immediate communication.
Right.
And we want it to be meaningful. I don't want him to be in pain, but I want him to take it and go like, that kind of sucked.
Sure.
I don't want it to happen again.
Right.
Right. So that's how consequence works.
Right.
So with positive reinforcement, the reason why it falls short is positive reinforcement tells the dog, do this again.
Sure.
Right. And I know there's stuff about underlying emotional responses, right? But if he's already triggered and you're trying to feed, you're technically reinforcing the action.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So like, I used to do protection training a long time ago, where we trained dogs to be aggressive towards humans on command.
Sure.
And we would have an antagonist, someone being suspicious. We would be holding the dog on a harness, putting frustration on them because they would be kind of pulling towards the person. And then if we heard them growl, bark, or nip or anything, good praise.
Sure.
So we want to reinforce that behavior.
Right.
Earlier today, I was coming from the DMV, and I saw this lady's dog. I think the metric thing pack, it freaked out and like almost like escaped its harness, and she like crouched down and she started petting it.
Sure.
And I'm like, this is exactly what I talked about.
Yeah.
So I know what she's trying to do.
Sure.
It's okay.
Right.
Relax.
Right.
But really telling the dog, yes.
Yeah.
freak out
Right.
when the
Yes,
dog
this is a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What we actually need is a disruptor.
Sure.
Right? And it sounds bad because the human goes like, but Jesse, the dog's scared of the train. Why would you correct being scared of the train? Like, I understand that. And it's not because the dog means he's bad.
Right.
But if that dog would have escaped its harness, now we have a bigger problem. Right? So the dog's not going to like the train, but the dog's going to learn that trying to run away from it is not the option.
Sure.
If anything, run to the owner.
Sure.
That's what I teach our dogs. They'll come and they'll sit next to the owner and I'll tell them, you can't do anything really about the level of fear, but at least you know they won't try to run away from you.
Sure.
Okay? So dogs don't view the world like we do. So yes, we can correct fear. Yes, we can correct anxiety. Yes, we can correct nervousness. Yes, we can obviously correct aggression. But that's what people tend to think. They think aggression is bad, everything else is okay.
Sure.
Right? But I go, no, it's unhealthy. Especially if the dog constantly is triggering into that behavior. It's unhealthy. It's fine if it happens from time to time, that's normal. But when I get dogs that are just constantly under anxiety or nervousness or duress or whatever, I go, the dog needs to be brought back to reality so that they can be neutral. And then everything else will start to fix itself.
Sure.
Okay? Questions on any of that?
No, I think that all tracks, and yeah, I think, like you said, kind of the plateau of we're getting the relaxation work, and he's, calming down quicker. But in those moments where he does get triggered,
Yes.
I don't have a great way of.
And the good thing that you brought that up is if he calms down quicker, right? He's making the decision to settle.
Right.
So he can also do what?
Get back up again.
So when we go, you need to settle
Sure.
on our command,
Sure.
through consequence, he can't unsettle.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Unless we told him he could unsettle.
Sure.
So that's the other thing is that clients will go like, oh, the dog will calm down after 10 to 15 minutes. But then if somebody moves, like they'll trigger it. I go, right, because they chose to calm down so they can choose to escalate.
To get back up. Sure.
So when you have the ability to settle him yourself, now everything's again under your control.
Right.
So it's kind of like with the kid. So like I was raised old school, I was spanked. Sometimes you go to church and it's an hour-long mass. And my mom was like, you have to be here, sit down and be quiet. You have to learn to just settle, right? And it was difficult. And then I got consequences. And then eventually I just learned how to be settled in church.
Sure.
And then she let me, right out the church, there was a little playground. And she's like, here's your reward now.
Sure.
Right? So I'm not against positive reinforcement. We can still use it. But if there's nothing to say, hey, you can't do this, then the positive reinforcement is not going to really have any meaning. Right. I use it like when we want to build trust between dogs and people. It's a great tool, but we want the dog to learn how to relax first on our command.
Sure.
And then we go, okay, now the person can give you food, so now that's positive.
Sure.
I agree with that stuff. But if nothing says you can't do that, then we're falling short.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
What are you trying to achieve with Hugo? Like, what's your end goal if you could have what you wanted? What does that look like?
Being able to, let's say, having a framework to have guests over in a way that isn't going to make them uncomfortable and isn't stressing me and Gabby out every time. Being able to take them somewhere like a park or go on a walk. And right now, I think it's a, fairly stressful experience for both of us. I'm trying to make sure that he's not going to lunge or that he's, he's trying to make sure we're safe. And I think I just want him to be able to live a more relaxed life and not constantly be, yeah. And I love how aware he is, and I love that he has this presence of mind. But like I said, find ways to communicate with him and say, hey, it's all good, we're safe.
Sure.
Yeah,
I
think, and I think somewhat that trust was broken a little bit with this bite. For me, it was a real, eye-opener of, like you said, kind of how he's seeing the world and how different it is from the way that we see the world.
Correct.
So,
but if you're like here right now, right?
Yeah.
You see these people, what do you think?
I think, hey, they're at the park.
Yeah. People are enjoying the park like I am.
Right.
Not him.
Right.
He's like,
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And obviously more so with the dogs than with the people. But
Yeah.
the people are getting his attention because when they walk by, he's like sitting around and he's watching them.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So, nothing I haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So here, this is a good example too, is I can see you preparing for him.
Right. Yeah.
What does he see?
He feels me preparing and sees more threat.
But does he think you're preparing for them?
No, he thinks I'm preparing for them. Right. Right.
So that's the other thing that people, they're like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're seeing, you're like, uh-oh, right?
Yeah.
And I can see you, and then he's like, okay, you're also, this is suspicious.
For sure.
And it's happening while
it's
those
like
got close to them.
vicious cycle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but nothing I haven't seen before.
Sure.
See it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried about it.
Cool.
Okay. So I would probably put you at around 9 classes,
Okay.
once a week for an hour.
Uh-huh.
So we have decent time for this program.
Okay.
I would suggest for a case like this is in person.
Sure.
You want to learn how to do this stuff. I already know how to do this stuff. I get that. Years of experience. I don't need more experience.
Sure.
Right. So, because we do boarding trains and stuff like that, it's nice because you get like training faster, but you learn so much less.
Yeah.
And with behavioral cases, you want everything yourself.
For sure.
Okay. So with 9, the way I would envision it is we have 2 on heel, a third on pressure work, which is me coming into personal space, kind of like mimicking guys. So that's technically pressure.
Sure.
That's what we would call social pressure. As we're coming closer into our space, it's kind of like, imagine you're walking on the sidewalk, right, by yourself, and you see 3 guys walking straight to you, giving you eye contact. As you get closer, you're going to feel uncomfortable. That's pressure. Okay?
Sure.
So pressure is when I come into personal space. Like right now, I'm indifferent to him. Right? So early when you asked, do you mind if he's loose? I said, if you're not worried about it, I'm not worried about it, but I'm also ignoring him.
Sure.
I'm not putting any kind of social pressure on him.
Right.
So we cover that. If he acts out, no problem. We address it, and you learn something. If he doesn't act out, I go, no problem. Good, because that's what I was hoping for, is to dial the brain down so we don't see anything. And then we can work on how do we appropriately and correctly introduce him to the behavior.
Sure.
Okay, so that's one thing. The 4th class could be having people over, inviting people into the home correctly. I do not recommend having people walk in unannounced ever.
No.
Okay, for any dog.
Yeah.
Okay. We can cover that. The 5th class could be stationary control, which is the place command, which is you send a dog and they don't move for as long as you want them to move. Right? So like if you have guests come over and he needs to be on place for 3 hours, you don't place for 3 hours. Sure. It sounds like, wow, it's a lot of work. It's very simple. Sure. I'm like dog training for dummies. Okay, but except for games.
Sure.
So the reason why I teach that is, let's say, and like he already does warm up to people, but let's say you have a person who's unsettled, for whatever reason, like maybe they're scared of big dogs, and you go, hey, no worries, I'm gonna place my dog. He's not gonna move for the next 3 hours. That helps the person relax.
Sure.
Okay. It also gives a structure within the home. we tend to think structure outside the home, like leash walking, pulling, and recall. But if the dog is doing whatever they want all the time inside the home and practicing control outside, like it's good to have control inside as well.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it just gives a structure within the home.
Sure.
So that was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 could be recall. I think every dog should have a recall. Okay. This allows you freedom. Right? That he doesn't have to be in the midst of dogs playing. But if he has prey drives and he wants to chase squirrels,
Sure.
I can let my dog chase squirrels now because I know I have a solid recall.
Sure.
Okay. Classes 7, 8, and 9 would be us. We can either teach more control versus obedience, but also it gives us a little bit of a window to work on more behavioral stuff.
Sure.
Okay. I know it sounds fairly straightforward, and because 98% of the time it is. Okay. As long as you're following through the instructions and everything, we're gonna make progress.
Sure.
Okay. The hard parts are gonna be creating those organic moments, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm in the home, and somebody just entered in from the other room with a plate, right? So what I would recommend, just to help take off some anxiety as you're trying to reincorporate them, is muscle conditioning.
Yeah, we've been working on that the last week.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Is it a Baskerville or a basket?
It's called Barkless, but it's a basket. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So continue conditioning.
Okay.
The reason for that is like, let's say you want to reintroduce like Gabby's dad. Right?
Sure.
Obviously. Either on her dad's part, right? There might be some apprehension, some anxiety there.
Totally.
So the muzzle allows you to start to incorporate them into the organic situations again, while removing the risk of if something happens, because it can. That's a part of the training. Because he doesn't learn not to do something unless he attempts it.
Sure.
Okay, or unless he's in the thought of it.
Sure.
So if he were to try to like charge and you're like, oh, I caught him, right? Even if he did reach the person, the worst he could do is muzzle punch. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then eventually you may come to a point where it's like, okay, I feel comfortable and confident enough in all the progress. Or like you see him when he sees Gabby's dad, he's just like he's seeing Gabby.
Sure.
Or you, right?
Sure.
Like that's how you can typically tell that the dog has welcomed the person in.
Sure.
There will still be rules. Like I tell clients, never put your face in another dog's face.
Right.
Like things like that.
Yeah.
So there'll still be rules in play, but you'll start to see like, okay, it looks like he's accepting him as if he was one of us.
Sure.
Okay, and that's where people start to recognize like I can move past the muzzle now, because it's very much intuitive. Because clients always ask like, how do I know when I'm ready? And I'll go, you'll know,
Sure.
because it's you for the most part.
Sure.
Right? Because if you go to a friend's house and you think to yourself, you know what, I don't think I should let him off leash without a muzzle here. That's telling
That's
you.
your signal. Yeah.
Yes. Right. But if you're like, yeah, sure, and you just do it, then that's also your signal.
Sure.
So it's obviously very intuitive.
Sure.
I get clients where like during the training program, they just feel that already. And I get other clients that they're like 6 months post-training, and then I'll get an email. They're like, Jesse, I finally moved past the muzzle. And I go,
Sure.
good for you.
Sure.
And just know, like there's no law that says you have to move past it. If you come to a situation where it's like, you know, I think I need to have it again, you just pop it on.
Sure.
Like it doesn't matter. It's just whatever helps you and the dog, right? Because obviously a dog bite is a serious thing. Depending on who the dog also bites.
Right.
You know, I've had clients coming through really minor situations. Yep, up and then down on the butt. Good job. Yep, up and down on the butt. Almost. Good. There you go. Yep. Bring him in one more time. Good. And the person's like, oh, I'll sue you.
Yeah.
Yep. Bring him in. Down on the butt. You're doing a good job.
Lose my shoe. Yep, I know, buddy. It's okay.
Do you know why this is more difficult for him?
Is it because it's a smaller dog?
Higher energy.
Yeah, okay.
It was
sure.
like jumping and lunging at the end of the leash, right?
Sure.
You can even look at his posture. You see all that?
Yeah.
Like that to a dog is threatening.
Yeah.
Even though to us, it's just like, that's just like a little
Right.
shit of a dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, so I would say 9, okay? Is a nice middle ground. Bare minimum, I would suggest is 6. If you do 6, I come in and I bare bones things, right? I always do focus on what's necessary. I don't teach stuff that I don't think is unnecessary.
Sure.
And if I see that you're making great progress and we have extra classes, like I will ask you, go ahead and pull up and push down proactively. Yep. Like, what would you like to cover? You know, and then you kind of call the shots there. And if you're like, yeah, like he's doing great behaviorally and I want to teach, like advance his training for off leash stuff, then we do that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
If you did 6, it would be 2 on heel, 1 on pressure, 1 on people coming over. Yep. Yep. And then here you can redirect them forward. Good. There you go. You're doing a great job. Great job. Excellent.
Boy.
One probably on stationary control, which just puts us at 5, leaving the 6 being the variable.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. So just to give you an idea,
Okay.
like of what I'm cutting out, like then I go, I'm like, I'm not going to worry about recall. I'm
Sure.
going to worry about obviously the behavioral stuff.
Sure.
Heel has to happen. Heel is a 2-part exercise.
Okay.
So it is 2 classes. But then after that, I can kind of play it by ear.
Sure.
Okay. And like, just to point out here, you see how he stood back up again?
Yeah.
This is because we don't have consequence.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And you're doing a great job. This is the limitation with what we have.
Right.
But at least you're able to settle him again, but we're unable to break his focus.
Totally.
So if you want like a great example, like Sunny was that's the dog I mentioned earlier. It was the exact same thing, but a bit more intense.
Sure.
Okay. Questions or concerns?
No. So does this fall into a particular program that you have outlined in the website?
So if you go on my website, you're going to see a couple of things. One is behavioral, which
Okay.
is a super expensive program.
Yeah.
I don't think you need that program.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
If you want to, you're welcome to. That program, the reason why it's so expensive is because it's a lifetime kind of guarantee.
Sure.
So I come in, we fully off-leash train the dog, all commands. We address all the behavioral issues. And then it's usually around 12 to 16 classes, okay? And then I go, thank you for your business. Let me know if you need anything, right?
Sure.
Let's say 2 years from now, someone steps on his tail.
Sure.
And you're like, hey, Jesse, someone stepped on his tail. He freaked out. He's regressed.
Sure.
Can you come back? I come back. I go 3 classes. I address it. I fix it. You don't pay more money.
Got it.
Okay, so that's why it's so expensive.
Okay.
It's because it's for the life of the dog.
Sure.
Okay. My other programs, the 3, 6, 9, and 12 week, they're fixed.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Careful here.
Jesus. Good eye.
There you go. So if you, for example, did 6, and then go to short your leash as well. Right there, hold right there. Keep relaxed. Up on your leash. Yep. Down on the butt. Excellent. And relax.
Thanks.
There you go.
No, it's
I
okay.
appreciate the dedication there.
All right.
Up on your leash. You
Yep.
got it. Down on the butt. You got it. Good job.
Yeah, I knew these shoes weren't the best option, but
No, you're good.
There we
Excellent.
go.
You're gonna keep
Yeah.
your leash like that.
Okay,
So
sure.
part of the reason he's catching you
Uh-huh.
is because since you're giving him the leash slack up on
Uh-huh.
the leash down on the butt, is he has that 3 to 4 feet of momentum
Sure.
to kind of yank you. So here you're short but you're relaxed. So going to stand up straight, right there.
Okay.
Perfect. You see that?
Yeah.
So even if he moves, the moment you pull up, you're going to catch him instantaneously, but
Sure.
also he's not going to have enough momentum
Sure.
to just yank you
So
down.
yeah, lunge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so let's say you did 6, and you're like, oh, Jesse, this is great. I want to do another 3 or what have you. You would have to pay the cost of
Sure.
another 3.
Okay.
We also don't prorate programs anymore. Okay. So it's cheaper. So if you come and you do 9 or 12, and you're like, I want this many from you, it's cheaper per class. If you do 6 and like add 3, you would pay the cost of 3
Sure.
because you're having to rebook again.
Sure.
Okay. So since my calendar is just clients coming in and off my calendar, is the time that you want or that you have, and you're trying to extend it, may not be available because another client's already been booked in that time slot.
Sure.
So if you did 9, for example, for 9 weeks plus 1, so 10. Let's say it was Monday at 2 was available and it worked for you. Monday at 2 for 9 plus 1 is your time.
Got it.
I see you every week.
Sure.
Okay. If you cancel, reschedule, get sick, go out of town, no big deal. We just push back, right? Let's say you go out of town a few times, we hit the 10th week, and you've rescheduled 3 times. You've used up what we call your priority.
Sure.
Okay. If no one's booked after you, no problem. We just continue.
Sure.
If somebody is booked after you, then we have to change the time.
Got it.
right? So same thing when people are trying to extend their programs. They're like, hey, this Saturday at 2 o'clock works great. I want to extend it. We're like, well, we can't because somebody's already booked after where your program would actually end. Okay.
Okay.
It just helps keep my calendar from being clogged up and backed up or whatever.
Yeah.
And then dogs that have trained with us, just so you know, are welcome to use our boarding services.
Okay.
Okay. They're not required to do daycare. Dogs that have not trained with us are required to do daycare once a week.
Okay.
And we get dogs like Hugo that can only come to us, and we've not trained them, and we do just fine with them.
Okay.
But they do that once a week with daycare allows us to keep that relationship.
Sure.
Okay. Dogs that
Sure.
we've trained, no big deal. I get clients that live in St. Charles, which is super far. It's a suburb. It's an hour and 45 minutes away. I don't expect them to come once a week for daycare.
Sure.
Right. But they've trained with us, so they're welcome to come whenever needed.
Sure.
But because at home, the same structure as it is at my facility, because we reinforce the same things, it's like they never left.
Sure.
Okay. But just as a heads up to you. So then let's say you did a longer program, you decided to do 12. Let's say we use 10 classes, and then you pocket the 2, which you're welcome to do. And then it's been a year or whatever, and you're like, you know what, Jesse, we're in a great spot. I don't think we need these last 2 classes. Can I convert it to credit and like board my dog? I go, absolutely.
Cool. Okay.
Not a problem. You're not going to lose your investment.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Question on any of that?
Just the per cost or per class cost for like a 9 or 12?
Yeah, that will be on the website.
Okay, cool.
I did the price a long time ago,
Sure.
but it is public knowledge.
Okay,
Tina will also break it down for you.
sure.
The last thing would be the cost of the collar.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, the collar that I recommend for you would be the black edition.
Okay,
It's gonna run around 350-ish with tax.
okay.
Okay, it's an investment, but it's gonna last you for years.
Sure.
Okay, my first collars lasted me 10 years before I had to replace them.
Okay.
Usually, what happens is the battery does die. It's a rechargeable lithium battery, like your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
You can go online, Dogtra, purchase it yourself. It's like 25 bucks.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward, or I do it now for my clients too, for
Sure.
35 bucks, all labor and parts included.
Okay.
But as long as you're taking care of it, they'll last you forever.
Sure.
And it's a fully waterproof system, both the transmitter and the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So if he likes going in the lake, perfectly fine with the collar on.
Haven't gotten there yet, but maybe one day.
And that's something that we can also cover. Like it's
Okay.
actually pretty straightforward.
Sure.
Okay. So other than that, you know, you think about how you want to approach it. Tina will of course give you the cost breakdown.
Sure.
Okay. And then she'll send you a contract, read the contract, ask any questions. Do understand it is first come, first serve.
Sure.
So sometimes clients like they'll ask a bunch of questions, perfectly fine. But then they're like, oh, but Jesse's booked now. And I'm like, well,
Well, that's what
how that
happens.
works.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, one other thing that just came to mind is I think some of this also stems from like a separation anxiety or
Okay.
that is at play. So is that something that tends to be resolved naturally through some of your techniques, or do you have like a particular?
When you leave, what does he do?
So usually he'll go and like stand by the window for a while, and then he does eventually relax,
Okay.
maybe 20, 30 minutes. There was one time since we've moved where we left him in the basement with the baby gate closed and Mac was upstairs. Hated that, came home to like scratch marks on the wall by the gate. And then like over the weekend, Gabby was out of town, so I was taking care of both of the dogs, and I'm taking them outside separately right now.
Okay.
So I would like take Mac out, and Hugo would lose his shit in the house. He'd be barking,
I see,
crying.
yeah.
So I think that's, you know, there's an aspect of that certainly. But even like tried to do a behavioral down with Gabby where I was in the other room and she was tethered to her foot in the office, and he was crying, whining the whole time.
Okay.
So definitely there's some, you know, when I leave, he gets a little upset.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we can cover it.
Cool.
I would lean more towards longer then,
Sure.
just because earlier, like I was like, I'm working with the estimate is like with the stuff you mentioned.
Right.
Separation anxiety isn't the end of the world.
Sure.
Like it's not like super difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I would say even within the 9, we'll still be like I wouldn't do the 6 though.
Sure.
Okay. If
Yeah.
separation isn't a thing, then I
Yeah.
wouldn't do 6. You're definitely
Sure.
around 9.
Okay.
12 will then just give you the buffer from that.
Sure.
Right. Whereas 9 gave you the buffer from the 6 with the separation anxiety. 12 would give you the buffer from the 9.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Once you understand dog behavior,
Yeah.
it's very simple.
Sure.
Okay. It's just a matter of are you going to be able to put in the work? Do keep in mind, I can only take you as far as you're willing to go.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, to give you an example, her video's on my YouTube channel. If you want to watch it, dog name was Georgia. One of the worst reactive dog. No, the worst reactive dog of 23 for me. Okay. 25-pound dog. Okay. With the reactivity of like a pity Rottweiler.
Sure.
Okay. It was very intense. We were at the corner and a dog could be right there, and the dog was blowing up.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I told her to get the same color that I'm telling you to get because I could already see the intensity. Okay. It took me up until the 5th class to finally come to the solution. I already knew what the solution was going to be. I had to work the owner through everything before.
Sure. Sure.
We had to correct the dog on max power, 127,
Wow.
on a collar meant for a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And I told her, rinse and repeat. Don't come back until you feel like you're making progress.
Sure.
2 weeks later, we met here. Dog was no longer reactive.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's such a great example, and that's the reason why I did a video for her, is because the human logic and emotional component is the greatest thing that gets in my way.
Oh, I bet.
Right.
Yeah.
So she had faith, and she was just like, you know what, Jesse's saying 127 now, and whatever, right? I'm gonna just believe it. But that's where we started making progress.
Sure.
And then because she kept to it, because most people would go like, well, this is a 25-pound dog, and this
Right.
is meant for a Rottweiler, and
Right.
like it's 127, right? Is they let that interfere, and then we don't make progress. Okay. But because she listened, she just never argued. Okay, Jesse, I believe you.
Sure.
We made great progress. Her dog was off leash trained. She was doing stuff with her dog, and you see her in the video talk about it that she just couldn't imagine she would be doing.
Sure.
Because she just followed the directions.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I always paint it worst case scenario for people, and I go, if you can deal with that, I can help you.
Okay.
If you can't deal with that, then I may not be able to help you, because if we end up at that point, that's where your limitation is, not mine.
Sure.
I'll get it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, shorten. Yep, and then relax.
Mm-hmm.
So you're short but not tight. Very good. And you can actually proactively pull up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, pull up and then press down. There you go. And then relax. Good. Up. Yep. Good. Very good. Okay. Other questions?
I think you covered. The other aspect is crate training, which he's not crate trained,
Okay.
and I imagine that's something that would be incorporated, or is it? Is
We
that
can't. So like separation anxiety and crate training are two different things.
sure?
Okay. Sometimes crate training makes separation anxiety worse.
Right.
I don't need to have things done a certain way. If it works for the client, it works for me.
Sure.
So, for example, I had a client, her dog had terrible anxiety in the crate, pee, poop, barking nonstop. It was a mess. And then one day she experimented with putting the dog with the baby gate in the kitchen. Dog was an angel.
Sure.
So when I came back, she's like, Jess, you're going to yell at me because this is what I did. And I was like, well, did it fix the
Sounds
problem?
like you found a solution.
And then she's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't care.
I think my reason I'm thinking about it is for boarding situations where I, assume he would be in a crate. It's impossible for me to imagine that at this time. So I guess.
It won't, like, if he's going to be boarding with us,
Yeah.
it's not a problem.
Okay.
If he's going to be boarding with someone else, then I would say, like, yes, we should crate train.
Okay.
Like, let's say, like, if there's ever the chance of he would go to a friend, like,
Sure.
who needs to use a crate, then I go, yes.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, it doesn't just transfer. Like, the dog might still throw a fit because it's a new person,
Sure.
right? But if he's boarding with us, it don't matter.
And you say that because you know how to handle it and you'll train him on it. Okay. Yeah.
We've had dogs become territorial of the kennel.
Right.
And I have a bite suit that I put on.
Yeah.
And I have to take the dog out.
Sure.
If it's consistently happening, we'll tell the client, like, you have to address this because
Sure.
this does take time and effort,
Sure.
right? But for the most part, like,
Okay.
99% of the time, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No, I think you've answered most of my questions and given me a pretty good sense of what's involved.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So if there's anything you forgot to ask, you may reach out to Tina. If
Sure.
it pertains to me, she'll reach out to me.
Okay.
I'll send her the answer. She'll reach out to you.
Sure.
She'll follow up with pricing and stuff, send you a contract. If you're trying to, like, get on the schedule right away, you can proactively just email her and say, hey, Tina, sign me up for X amount, whatever.
Sure. Okay.
Prices are on our website under the obedience classes, or obedience training. That's where you'll find the program.
Okay.
He wouldn't be under behavior.
Got
the
it.
behavior is like the $5,000 one.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, if you want the warranty, and you want to give me $5,000, I will take it from you
Yeah.
happily.
Sure. Of course.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
I can do this within the behavioral obedience program.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome, Jonathan. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah,
I'll grab your
likewise.
mic before you go.
Sure. Here you go.
Nice to talk to a fellow guitar player.
Yeah, man.
Take care. Enjoy the day.